Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm ready to start. And last week we were talking about Jupiter and specifically how Jupiter is involved in the very many arterial diseases that are common causes of illness and death in the modern society. So for instance, heart attacks or stroke, certain kinds of strokes, any kind of stroke is an arterial. There's an arterial, the arteries are the tissue that's affected. So we're going to have Jupiter will be involved with those. And this was, they found in the Church of Light found in the 20th century when they did their research that Jupiter was frequently involved. I mean, Jupiter was one of the constants, right, for heart attacks. So I think I finished that section, and I want to move on to the next one. We're talking about Jupiter. Jupiter also, Jupiter rules the liver, and so we would expect to see Jupiter involved with liver disease. And I have a question. This is one of those things where you can have the sign Sagittarius rules a certain zone, but the planet rules an organ that doesn't have anything to do with that zone, right? So Sagittarius rules the hips and the thighs in that region, but Jupiter rules the liver, right? And so we also have, well, yeah, similar. The Venus rules organ functions, right? But the Libra, well, Libra rules that region also. So, but in this case, we're looking to the planet. I understand, for instance, you can have the locations, the zones that are ruled by the signs. But some of the planets rule tissues throughout the whole body without any reference to zone. So like the moon rules lymphatic tissue. And the lymphatic tissue might be in the neck, or it might be in the pelvis, right? It might be in the abdomen, right? But the moon rules that. It's many different places. This is one of the distinctions between planetary indicators and the sign indicators. Some of the other ones, Mars rules muscles wherever they are in the body, whether it's muscles in the Gemini region or muscles in the Sagittarius region or any other region, right? So Saturn rules the bones wherever they may be. So Jupiter rules the arteries wherever they may be, right? And Jupiter also rules the liver, right? Which has nothing to do with the Sagittarius zone. Or remember, Jupiter rules the feet, right? For a couple of thousand years, Jupiter ruled the feet by its rulership of Pisces, and it still rules the feet. So, but then the liver has nothing to do with that. So, okay. Here we have Dylan Thomas, famous poet, remarkable poet, but very famous alcoholic, serious, like quarter whiskey a day kind of alcoholic. And he developed alcoholic liver disease, and so this was
Paul, do you have a slide up, or did you share?
Oh, screen? I should share my screen, I guess.
Yeah, that would be nice. Thank you.
Okay, slideshow from the beginning, and then I need to go. How am I going to share that now? Okay, just a minute. And we are complicated.
Also, I have a question, Paul.
Yes.
The charts that you've been using, I didn't check back through my course 16, but are these all charts from course 16, except for the modern ones, like your, people currently that you've been looking at? But
no, I haven't used any charts from any of the lessons.
Okay.
All the charts I'm using are modern charts.
Okay, thank you.
there. Okay, is that screen shared there? Does it say Hermetic medical astrology up there appropriately? Does it? Yes. Okay, good. Let me put this down and find my controller here. All right. So we'll come up. We have yeah. Here we are, and we're still on Jupiter, and we'll do Dylan Thomas. As a poetry reading at City College 2 days after Thomas's 39th birthday was his final public appearance. He developed delirium tremens, that's the withdrawal syndrome from alcohol, and a doctor was summoned to his hotel. You can die from that. People should know if people are serious alcoholics, they can't just stop drinking. You get delirium tremens, you get seizures, and you can die. So, here, so that has to be people withdrawing from serious alcoholism or even from a long binge. It has to be done under medical supervision. So, doctor was summoned to his hotel. He gave the raving man a morphine injection, which may have killed him, put him into a coma. His wife, Caitlin, flew over, presumably from Ireland, in time to see him alive, but she said possessed of 10,000 raving demons. Part of delirium tremens is the person hallucinates all kinds of things. He died. He died a short time after that. And here's what they said. The autopsy said that he had bronchial pneumonia with fluid in the brain as the primary cause. Okay. And then that was aided by the fact that he had a fatty liver. Right. Fatty liver, this is called an alcoholic fatty liver. From all the alcohol pouring through there, the alcohol is converted into the alcohol is metabolized in the liver and turned into fat, fills up the liver with fat. It can be serious enough to kill somebody. So we're looking here for constants for alcoholism. We discussed those under Mars, which we'll see them in this chart also. And then we're going to look for liver disease. And then also, I know you're a bright, diligent and illustrious students, and you could tell me what would be common between bronchial pneumonia and fluid on the brain. Would be Mercury, right? Mercury ruling the brain. Now Mars also rules the brain, but Mercury rules the brain function. And so let's see the chart and see what we can see here. We have. I'd like your feedback. Is the chart big enough for you guys to see, or should I move to a bigger chart?
Bigger's better.
Bigger's better. Okay.
In this case.
Okay. Let me go over okay, I'll go forward and back each one. Mars and Neptune. We expect for alcoholism to have an afflicted Mars, right? And an affliction to Neptune, right? Sometimes Mars and Neptune aspect each other, but in this particular case, Mars and Neptune don't aspect each other. But the Mars here is afflicted. It is here we are. It's in Mars is in 19 of Scorpio. It's square to Jupiter, and we'll come back to Jupiter when we start talking about the liver. And but then also where this is sesquiquadrate to Saturn. Both ends of this Mars-Jupiter square are sesquiquadrate to Saturn and Pluto. You can see this is a very aggressive and destructive configuration here, with both Saturn and Mars acting together. That's the two malefics. Right? It can be very, very destructive. And so here we have this. And then we also have, for the alcoholism, we have the sun is, we have Neptune on the ascendant, squared to the sun, and it has some beneficial aspects to it, harmonious aspects to it, but this is this combination, the affliction of Mars and Neptune, is our indicator for alcoholism. So then we have here we're going to have Mercury is conjunct Mars, square to the Moon and Jupiter. And why I'm mentioning Mercury is because he has bronchial pneumonia. Now remember, we talked about the lung. The lung has the upper area along the bronchial tree, which is ruled by Gemini and Mercury, and the lower lobes ruled by Cancer, Cancer and the Moon. So here we have, we're looking at for something because he had bronchial pneumonia and brain. So we can have Aries can rule the head and the brain. We don't have anything in particular in Aries here. Let's see. Wait a minute. Yeah, there's Aries midheaven. So okay, there's something in Aries there. But we're looking here at Mercury. Mercury rules the brain function, and here's Mercury is conjunct Mars. So this would be in Mercury conjunct Mars is infection, inflammation, and infection in the lung. Okay, and here and then also this could be inflammation in the brain. When you say you have fluid in the brain, it means there's inflammation in the brain. And if you remember our stages of inflammation, inflammation starts attracting things, and one of the things that happens is it causes swelling. So you can have inflammation in the brain, and you get swelling there. So okay, and here is okay. That's Mercury, and then let me see. And I made a mistake here I put Venus in Sagittarius liver. I apologize. Sagittarius does not rule liver. The big deal here is the Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter is opposite the ascendant. Yeah, and it has pretty much everything wrong with it. Jupiter is ruling the liver. It is opposite the ascendant. I don't have the line drawn in there. Okay, it's opposite the ascendant, square to the Sun, square to Mars, and sesquiquadrate to Pluto and Saturn. And that is just a massive affliction to Jupiter. So, okay, and here he had alcoholic liver disease. This would the Mars Mercury, the brain, Mercury being the brain and Mars being the brain, would also, that could be the delirium, and okay, and then also the afflicted Neptune could contribute to hallucinations. So the rest of the evening, the rest of the slides I have, we're going to be discussing Cancer. We're moving into Saturn, and Saturn would be, of course, if there were one planetary indicator for Cancer, it would be Saturn. But in the work the Church of Light did in the 20th century, they did 100 charts of patients with cancer. They found Jupiter was prominent in the chart using our rules of prominence in 100%. And it had a discordant aspect in 95 of those 100 charts. Right? So this is one of our, in our course, this is one of our constants for Cancer. The four constants would be Saturn, Jupiter, Moon, and Neptune, and we'll be talking about them in a minute. But let's think about Jupiter and medical astrology. We think of Jupiter as the good luck planet. Jupiter is, well, it's good luck until you get liver disease, right? Or good luck until you lose next month's rent at the racetrack. And so on. So Jupiter can be over optimism, right? I've done some preliminary work. I know some people, maybe some of you who are here, are working on bipolar disorder. And I just did some preliminary work. I believe Jupiter is probably involved with bipolar disorder. Jupiter also, it rules insulin function. So we have an underlying condition of many modern diseases called insulin resistance, and that is indicated in the chart with discords to Jupiter, in the chart. So for medical astrology, we can't start looking over it. Oh, Venus, oh, Venus, we don't have to worry about that, right? Oh, Jupiter, we don't know. Jupiter's good luck. That isn't going to do anything. Jupiter is expansion, and it can be overexpansion. It's growth, it can be overgrowth. So this is a food for contemplation. Why would Jupiter be a constant in Cancer? So we'll this was, by the way, I'm going through a process, not every single one, but I'm going through conditions where our lessons have a certain set of constants, and I'm getting I'm aiming for 10 each, right? I don't always get there, but 10 charts known with a AA rating for those conditions, and seeing if those constants that they found are there in all those charts, and generally they are, right? So this I did this with I have about 30 charts of various kinds of cancers, and those constants are consistent across all of them, right? And with the occasional exception, just the way it shows there, an exception where, for instance, there wasn't a discord in one of the planets. So this to understand what cancer is, I will talk about it more, but this would be actually the medical definition of the process of cancer. It's called neoplasm, like new tissue, right? And something happens where some tissue that was part of you ceases to be part of you, right? Something has happened, right? Oxidative damage to the genetic material, little beam of radiation came through there, or it just got old and tired and didn't copy itself properly, right? And so it becomes not self. So you'll have some not self cells there, and the definition there is uncontrolled, virulent. Virulent means spreads, growth of poorly differentiated tissue. Differentiated tissue means this cell knows it's part of you and knows it's supposed to be a liver cell, and something happens, right? And it no longer thinks it's part of you, and your body stops recognizing that it's part of you, and it also stops being a liver cell. And it may have some of the functions of the liver, but it's sort of off on its own now. This is neoplasm, new. It's a new thing. And then, but the point is there's the neoplasm, uncontrolled growth. Normally, the things in your body that grow, they have brakes on them, right? They have vigorous brakes on them so that you don't keep growing, right? The compartments are full, the cells will divide so much, you have brakes on that. So this is this is why Jupiter would be involved with cancer, is because there's growth, expansive beyond its boundaries. It's overexpansion of the tissue, overgrowth of the tissue. So, okay. Now, like my summary, we think of Jupiter as a planet of good luck. We should contemplate and assess the positive and negative aspects of the planet in cases of medical conditions. Jupiter is like a malefic. Right? The discord of Jupiter can cause tremendous harm. So, okay. All right. We're gonna move on to Saturn here. By the way, if the class might be, I might want to have to stop at an hour tonight, but if we're not going to finish, we have one more class, I think, and I'll add 2 classes at the end if I need to finish the material, if that's all right with everybody. I'd like to finish the basic material and then spend 1 or 2 weeks where we're just doing some charts, answering specific questions, investigating certain questions about charts, and just practicing delineation in medical issues. So Saturn, this Saturn is it rules the bones and the ligaments. That's the connective tissue that holds the bones together. Rules the teeth, the mineral salts of the body. Okay. it tends to deficiency and cold, especially, there's something wrong with that, affecting the kidneys in traditional Chinese medicine. This is the kidney. I should translate this into not traditional Chinese medicine. That's your core vital reserve, is what they call kidney in Chinese medicine. So it can cause depletion of your core vital reserve there. Okay. The energetics are cold, dry, contracting, crystallizing. That's from Heindel. The qualities: reserved, fearful, pessimistic. Same. The weather is very cold, and you must say, and this is an amazing thing about Saturn and Mars also. Mars can cause destruction through cold, and Saturn can cause destruction through heat. I have a remarkable chart. It's not a medical chart, it's a weather chart. And during World War II, there was a town here near Portland called Vanport. And there were shipyards here, and they were building ships for World War II. And all kinds of people flooded in there. African Americans from the South, Asian immigrants came, and they built this whole town. And it was the second largest town in Oregon. Portland was bigger, but the capital, Salem, was smaller than Vanport. And one day it had been raining a lot, and the Columbia River was starting to flood. And one day the levee broke, and half an hour later there was no more Vanport. Right? It was gone in 30 minutes. It was never rebuilt. The city was wiped from the face of the earth. Right? And the weather constant there were Pluto for destruction, but Saturn was consistent throughout there. And so what Saturn did was Saturn made it so cold that the normal spring melt didn't occur, right? It was cold for a period. The normal, so all this snow was ready to melt, okay? But the weather, so there was too much snow packed up there, and then the weather suddenly turned way too hot. And then all this, the accumulated ice and snow from the entire mountain range all the ranges that feed the Columbia River, it all melted at once, and it caused a catastrophic flood. And this is an example of Saturn making it too cold and then making it too hot, and the two together like that caused the destruction that happened. So these happens in diseases too. People can be Saturn, although it's supposed to be cold, Saturn can cause excessive fever, right? Or chronic fever, chronic low-grade fever, and so on. So, okay. Here, the pathology, okay, is from Heindel: restricting, depleting, obstructive. One of the things, let's see if I have it in there. One of the things you see here is people chronically undereat is an expression of Saturn. So there's a slow, gradual malnutrition that builds. This can range from disordered eating. Now, I'm not pretending that I know that Saturn is a facet of disordered eating as a diagnosis, but we see it, people who do excessive fasting, or sometimes people will, some people who follow a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, they're gradually becoming depleted of nutrients. And we see this would be a Saturn kind of process. Okay. Always affects through a deficiency, malnutrition. I think this is Zane, through too narrow a diet. In our clinics with our practitioners, we call this we have one thing we call broad spectrum nutrient deficiency, right? We'll see a client would say, well, this person doesn't have a magnesium deficiency or a zinc deficiency or whatever. They're deficient in everything, right? They're not eating enough. The food they're eating is all chips and processed food and fast food and TV dinners and whatever. And it just doesn't have enough nutrients in it, right? So all the boats in the harbor went down together. You can also, and this often happens with elders, people get older and they start tunneling and eating certain favorite foods and not eating so much a broad variety of foods. And then that diet that they select will, since it may be missing 2 or 3 key nutrients in it, and then they eat it, and then gradually, this is a narrow spectrum nutrient deficiency, gradually they become depleted for 1 or several nutrients like that and can become sick with that. This is process. This is Saturn, the restriction, the deficiency. This was Zane has their malnutrition through too narrow a diet. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Also poor assimilation. Okay. Chronic, this is really, Saturn is chronic wasting diseases. This is where we have, this is cancer. It's a chronic wasting disease. It inclines to cancer, to fibrous tumors. This fibrous tumors, cancer is, the malignant tumors are the ones with the uncontrolled growth, right? You can have tumors, benign tumors, they just kind of make a lump there in your connective tissue and they don't particularly spread anywhere. So there would be that. He says also tuberculosis. Now, tuberculosis is a wasting disease. People get tuberculosis, they can like lose a whole lot of weight. And also probably a predisposing factor to tuberculosis is malnutrition. There was, okay. Okay. Atrophy, that's anything where the function of a gland or an organ or something that just becomes deficient. It doesn't work right. Okay. Constipation. Here, the kidney stones and gallstones, this would be because they're becoming solid concrete, right? They're made out of substances which would normally flow with a liquid, and then they become crystallized and solidified. That would be a Saturn process there. Okay. Now, Zane has the therapeutics as nature cure. I should talk a little about that. Sometimes people hear the term nature cure and they think, oh, that's all about like colonics and fasting and stuff like that. Nature cure nature cure is a perennial in medicine, right? In ancient times, they wouldn't have called it nature cure, they would have called it medicine, right? The main methods of nature cure are resting in nature, right? Getting a good night's sleep, right? Getting a whole foods diet, right? And moving your body around and getting some exercise, right? And getting exposed to the sun, right? And like sunbathing. And it's all like for natural, it's natural things. Now this is my profession. I'm professionally trained as a nature cure practitioner, and I've been practicing that with my patients since 1973, right? And it's minimalist kind of intervention. There's not a lot of substances here. Take this pill or take this tea or something like that. You can do that, but nature cure is mainly adjusting dietetics, right? And then one of the key pieces of that adjustment of dietetics is identifying foods that bother you. Foods that when you eat it, you get bloated or something, right? Or foods that when you eat it, makes your joints hurt or whatever. And so I'm getting to why this Saturn would be a ruler here, that nature cure requires a certain amount of discipline, right? It requires you to say, I'm going to eat this and I'm not going to eat that, right? And, oh, I'd really like to eat that. No, I'm not going to eat that, right? And if you have good psychology, you're going to say, oh, I'm not going to eat that. I'm going to eat this instead, right? You're going to transfer to something else to get a positive psychology there. But sometimes you have to say, if somebody's a diabetic, they can't eat sugar, right? You have to say, I'm not going to eat sugar, right? If someone has a dairy allergy or a gluten allergy or something, you have to be, it's very hard. You have to say, I'm not going to eat gluten. When I go to the restaurant, I'm going to ask if there's gluten in the food, right? And then all my friends are looking at me, oh, well, you're weird. You're not doing that, right? You start feeling like a stranger in a strange land, but it requires discipline, right? And one of the methods of nature cure, especially 100 years ago, was fasting. right? Is go 1 to 3 days without food. And I'm just going to mention, this is why Saturn, fasting would be ruled by Saturn. You're not going to eat when you want to eat, right? You're restricting. I have to say, because we're talking about fasting here, there's a rule in fasting in Nature Cure, is you never, ever, ever fast a deficient patient. If the patient is malnourished at all, no fasting, right? It can cause an injury. And this was one of I call him my mentor, though I never met him. I was trained by people who were trained by people who he trained. And his name was Henry Lindlar, Lindlahr. He has a wonderful book. You can get a used book for $5. It's called Nature Cure by Henry Lindlar. Just Nature Cure, Henry Lindlar. You read it, it's all about Nature Cure. But he said no one should fast unless they have a warm, moist constitution, and never if they are nervous disposition or hypersensitive in any way, right? So this is the rules of Nature Cure. You think, oh, just fast, everything will be better. No, you can cause injury doing that. And I'm telling you, I have seen grievous injury that people have done by excessive fasting. I don't know if you know the Biggest Loser, Trump's show, the Biggest Loser. That thing's been copied in 25 different countries. They have the Biggest Loser Thailand, the Biggest Loser, Malaysia or whatever. And all around the world, people are doing this heroic, this extreme fasting and extreme exercise and losing huge amounts of weight. And somebody did a follow-up study, and I'm talking about here, Saturn can be destructive. Fasting can show you the destructive side of Saturn. And what they've done, they followed up the Biggest Loser patients. They followed them for 6 years, right? And normally your basic metabolic rate is burning calories at a certain level. On average, after 6 years, their basic metabolic rate had been depressed by 600 calories a day, meaning that they now had to eat 600 calories a day less in order to maintain stable weight, right? This is it's a permanent injury to their metabolism, right? So, okay. There is a kind of fasting, you may hear about it. We call it intermittent fasting. And that's you delay your breakfast, right? You delay your breakfast until you're really hungry. And usually you can start eating around 11, and then you eat what you want, but then you quit by 7. And so there's some discipline involved in that, but that won't do any harm to anybody, right? Even if you're deficient, as long as you eat as much as you have an appetite for during that period of eating. So okay, this is yeah, I've talked about this. Lifestyle modifications require some will, intention, and some discipline to do that. So these come under Saturn, and this is as really good medicine. Saturn is really good medicine for a lot of different things. We think just the way we think Jupiter is benefic, right? But it can be malefic. Like Saturn can be very beneficial. Sometimes it is the only way you will not have that disease anymore if you develop enough discipline to do the appropriate lifestyle modification. That will help. Okay. All right. I'm going to do here. We'll do some cancers here. Cancer in general, and I'll do some specific cancers. Okay. This is what they found. They did 100 charts, and they did Saturn. They said Saturn, Jupiter, Moon, and Neptune, prominent and usually afflicted. I love this. We're going to see this in the subsequent slides. This usually afflicted, if what I found, well, all the cases we're going to do, almost every one of them, they all had the planets were prominent by the rules of prominence, right? But there were a few of them that were not afflicted, right? So when you're using any of the constants, especially when you look at the lessons and it says usually, don't think that it has to be, you have to have an affliction there for that to manifest. And it's the same way we see it. Triggering events often a triggering of a disease. It's a conjunction with a malefic, or it's an adverse aspect or something. But sometimes it's a sextile that opens up a channel to that discord. It has an aerial and allows that thing to manifest. So, but this is usually afflicted. Here, I did, just as a basic thing, I took a series of 10 charts of patients with a variety of cancers, different kinds, and those 4 constants were prominent in all 10 of those, right? And this is, remember, our prominence is angular. The planet is angular, or maybe, if not angular, highest planet in the chart, or aspecting the sun, moon, or Mercury, or involved in a powerful aspect configuration, involved within one or 2 degrees of another planet, that becomes more prominent there. Okay. In this series of 10, it was just a sample. I'm just gonna, here's mixed cancers 10. Let's see if Saturn, Jupiter, Moon, and Neptune are prominent and usually afflicted. And what I found was 10 of 10 charts. Saturn, Jupiter, and the Moon were prominent in all of them, and discords for 10 of 10 Saturn, Jupiter, and the Moon, and 9 out of 10 charts for Neptune. And this little sample here of modern charts, nothing to do with the original 100 that they were doing there, found exactly the same pattern in those 10 charts. And now in the following slides, now we're going to show some specific cancers. And but what we find is in all these, you'll see, I'll go through each one and show where they're there in the charts. In the following slides, the constants remain, but then there are additional indicators for the tissues and the organs involved. And so one person will have those constants, right? But they'll have a discord in Scorpio or Mars or Pluto, and maybe that person will get prostate cancer, right? Or uterine cancer, right? Another person might have the discord in Cancer or to the Moon, a big discord there. So those discords that may express as breast cancer, right? So I'll show you the pattern there, and we're going to finish. There's a chart where a woman had 4 different kinds of cancers, and you can see the basic indicators for cancers, and then you can see each of the other tissue types with afflictions in them. And when we do the progressions for when they manifested those other cancers, those tissue types were being activated by progression when they manifested cancers in those things. So this is the overview of cancer. You have the general constants and then the specific tissue at risk. Okay. This is just some things about cancer. It's called neoplasm, uncontrolled virulent growth of poorly differentiated tissue. There's a damage or alteration of the genetic material so that the cancerous tissue is no longer self, right? It's growing on its own. It's no longer coordinated with you, right? So there, talk about stages. Initiation of cancer is I could make a joke about initiations here, but the initiation is the beginning of the cancer. In the beginning of cancer, here's a cell. It has your genetic material in it. Something happens and it goes, boom, that's not your cell anymore. That's not yourself anymore. The genetic material's been altered, and now that thing starts growing on its own. That's initiation. And then growth, this is essential, the growth. And I believe the growth of the neoplasm, this is what comes under Jupiter. This is why you have Jupiter as a constant here. Metastases and implantation, that is, you have a tumor, will start shedding tumor cells, which start floating all over your body, right? Like that. And the reason I think it's Neptune is like Neptune rules epidemics, right? Right? You have the viruses around all over them. You can't really see it. It's running out all over the place, spreading everywhere and spreading here and there. And so this is basically like an epidemic of cancer cells floating around your body. And then that's called, and then if they land somewhere and start growing a new tumor there, that's called metastasis. right? So then you have growth again, right? Jupiter again. And this is, here you have, I have some questions about cancer. Primary cancer, like that's the tissue that it arises in, okay? Like people talk about cancer like it's one disease. No, cancer might be 200 different diseases, right? You can have a lung cancer from one kind of lung cell that becomes one kind of cancer, or a lung cancer from a different kind of lung cell that is a different cancer with a different progression, a different prognosis, and so on. And then you can also have, this would be common, you could have, say, a man can have prostate cancer, and then, but then those cells from that prostate, they spread and they land in the lung or the liver or the brain. And so now they basically have prostate cells, pirated prostate cells, but now it's in the location of the lung or the brain or the liver, right? So cancer is it's complicated that way. And so as a result, the astrology of it's going to be complicated. And I haven't sorted it all out yet, but you have to figure the primary tissue type that the cancer arises from should be indicated in the chart. And it appears to be in the charts that we have here. So you expect for prostate cancer or uterine cancer, you would expect to see indicators in Pluto, Mars, or Scorpio, right, for that. For breast cancer, a moon or Cancer, right? For lung cancer, you would expect to see Gemini, Mercury, right? And possibly the moon or Cancer for the lower lobes of the lung, okay? And so on. The secondary cancer types, this is what the thing with cancer, it starts in one tissue. Those tumors hardly ever kill somebody. It's when they metastasize and the cancer cells are flowing around the body, and then they can land, and they land in sites. They can land in your brain, land in your lung, land in your liver, or land in your bones. That's the most common place where cancer cells end up. Then in those places, they start growing uncontrollably, and most people will die of the metastatic cancer, right? Because say there's a tumor growing in the brain and putting pressure on a blood vessel or something like that. So that's just some background to cancer. You can see the issues of growth and spread, that kind of Neptune epidemic kind of spreading of things is a part of what's going on. Okay. We'll do here. This is breast cancers. Okay. I have a series of 5 charts of women with breast cancer. I hope my collection grows, but that's what I have at the time I'm presenting the show here. All 5 of them had prominent Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, and the moon. Those were the standard ones. And they were all had discords to them. All of those planets had discords. All also had a discord to a planet in Cancer, as well as a discordant aspect to the moon. Right? Now, you won't always find, sometimes the sign will be unoccupied by a planet, and then you rely on aspects to the ruler. But in this particular series, these 5, there were aspects to a planet in Cancer and also to the moon, right? So this is our pattern. We have the constants, and then we have discords in the tissue where the cancer develops. So that. Here's an example chart. This is Sandra Day O'Connor, former Supreme Court Justice. Let's see. And I'm going through the planets one at a time, the constants one at a time. Angular, we have Saturn. Okay. Saturn is angular. If you look at her chart here, that Saturn is very prominent by its position over here, right? It's in the first house. It's conjunct the ascendant, right? And then then it is discordant. It's opposite Pluto in Cancer, square Sun, Venus, and Uranus. Okay, so the Saturn is square down here, and I think that Saturn should be square to the midheaven also. So that qualifies for prominent and discordant, right? So and then here we have, so for we're looking at Neptune. Neptune is opposite. Here we go. Opposite. Neptune is opposite the moon, opposite Mars, semi-square Pluto in Cancer in the MC. So Neptune is prominent in this particular chart. It's prominent by being the highest planet in the chart. To me, there's always a question with a high planet, like if one was higher over here, but a little lower here, maybe that's not. But this becomes prominent by its elevation in the chart. And then in addition, it's prominent because it aspects the moon. And here it is, it's opposite, the Neptune is opposite the moon, also opposite Mars. And then this semi-square and sesquiquadrate there with Pluto in Cancer. So, but this is Neptune as one of our constants. Okay, Jupiter as a constant is not prominent by position, but it aspects the sun. Okay, and it's square to Mars. And a critical piece here is it's parallel to Saturn. Okay. Right. And then our moon is semi-square to the sun and ascendant, and opposite Neptune is moon. You can see here moon is semi-square to Saturn, semi-square to the sun. The sun is square to Saturn, and this is one of those configurations we described early in the class sequence here, where we call this an aggravated square. The moon is right there getting friction from both sides, right? In addition to its other aspects. So there we have our four constants. Did I do Neptune yet? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, Neptune's included there, opposite the moon. Okay. So what is now? That's the constants. What is the specific for breast cancer? As here we have Pluto. Here's Pluto in Cancer. Okay, and the Pluto is where we go. Pluto in Cancer, square Jupiter and Venus. Pluto in Cancer is square to. That's not right. Something's wrong with that. What do we have here? I have a mistake there. Pluto in Cancer is opposite Saturn. Okay, and that's sufficient for Cancer. But then it also has a semi-square and sesquiquadrate to Neptune and Mars on that. So that's the planet in Cancer, and we have that moon, the ruler, right? So this adds to the indication of discord in the area of the breast. Is the moon here is, in addition, it has the semi-square to Saturn and the semi-square to the sun there. Okay, there it is. We have prostate cancers. Prostate was ruled by Scorpio, and prostatic function would be ruled by Pluto and Mars. So I have a case series of 10 charts of men with prostate cancer. All 10, Saturn prominent and afflicted, Jupiter prominent and afflicted, Neptune prominent and afflicted, and Mars prominent and afflicted, all 10. Okay. And then all 10 had Pluto prominent and afflicted, right? Now I put Mars and Pluto here because of their affiliation with the prostate and with Scorpio. All 10 had Pluto prominent and afflicted. It's pretty good. 7 of the 10 had a discordant aspects to a planet in Scorpio. The other 3 with an empty Scorpio had Mars or Pluto aspects as above. So this is 100%, had all our constants for Cancer, as well as constants specific to Scorpio in the prostate planet. probably we have one to look at here.
Paul, you didn't mention the moon in those.
I didn't. I don't know why. It's there. They had the moon there. I just didn't write it in here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, this is a man, Joseph Edward Cronin. He has prostate cancer. Here we have Saturn is I have up there, Saturn is prominent because it aspects Moon and Mercury. Okay, it aspects Moon and Mercury, and then it is opposite Mars and square to Venus here. So for its discord, Jupiter is conjunct Neptune opposite Uranus, and it is also involved in a T-square. It's also square to let's see, square to Sun and the midheaven. Yeah, that's right. Square to Sun and the midheaven. Okay, and opposite Uranus. Okay, Jupiter. Moon is angular. That's where we get our prominence. Okay, it's square to Mercury here, and it's semi-square to Pluto, square Mars. Now we're going to get around to the prostate in a minute, but here you have the two co-rulers of Scorpio are square to each other, so you expected some discord in that area. And then there's an aerial there into the moon, the first house moon also. So then Neptune is here. This is the Pluto is square Mars, and the moon here is on the midpoint there. And then we have Neptune is square to the midheaven, and the above and the sun below. It's a T-square, Neptune on the leg of a T-square. So that's our constants. So then let's see here. Okay, we're looking at Scorpio then. Mercury in Scorpio, okay, is square to the moon. Okay, it's opposite the midheaven, square the ascendant, and sesquiquadrate Mars. So this is the Scorpio. Okay, sesquiquadrate semi-square Mars, sorry, is square to the moon, opposite the midheaven there. Okay, so that would be sufficient discord in Scorpio, but then also the rulers, we have Mars is square to Pluto and opposite Saturn, right? So that brings Saturn really brings more discord, inclination to Cancer, Ariel into the area of the prostate. Okay, and then Pluto is here, square Mars and semi-square the moon. So you can see this is really quite a load of discord as the general indicators for Cancer, and serious discord in Scorpio there. And this man died of prostate cancer. Here we'll see the same pattern here with lung cancers. We have 8 patients who died of lung cancer. They all had prominent Saturn with discord, all had prominent Jupiter, prominent Moon, prominent Neptune, and the Saturn they were all discordant. 6 of the 8 had discords to Jupiter. So this is where they say in our lessons, or Zane says usually, right? And they had a prominent Moon with discords. Neptune, 7 of the 8 had discords, but 1 of them didn't in there. Okay. All the charts for lung cancer, they had discords to a planet in Gemini or to Mercury, its ruler. Okay. And 2 of the 8 had Gemini empty, but 7 of the 8 had a discord to Mercury. So most of these, the ones that had a discord to Gemini also had a discord to Mercury. So reinforcing quite strong. So I'm not saying that would be necessary. I'm just saying that's what happened with this roll of the dice. So, okay. Here's an example. This is Howard Cosell, died of lung cancer. Okay, we have here's Saturn as in the angle. Here's Saturn as an angle. It's opposite Venus, square to the moon. Okay, that's prominent and discordant. Okay, Jupiter aspects the Sun and Mercury for prominence, and it's a square to the midheaven and to Mars. Okay, square to Mars below, midheaven above, and it's also, yeah, Jupiter. Okay, the moon is prominent by aspecting Mercury. It's a square to Mercury, Saturn, and Venus. This is Neptune. Square, what am I doing? Moon. Square, wait a minute, where am I? I got lost here. Moon aspects Mercury, square to Mercury, Saturn, and Venus. I hope I didn't make a mistake there. Moon, 24, 15. Oh yeah, Mercury. Yeah, Saturn. Yeah, sure. And Venus. Yeah, it is. So that's a square. Moon's on that too. So that's square. Moon prominent and discordant. And then Neptune is what do we have here? Square Neptune. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to have to go on to Mercury. This is lung cancer. In his particular chart here, Mercury is conjunct the Sun and square the Moon. And here, Mercury, this for lung cancer, he has a Moon in Gemini for the lungs, stresses the lungs, is at the short leg of this T square. It's square to Saturn and these other planets. And then Mercury is specifically sesquiquadrate to both Mars and to Jupiter and Neptune and the ascendant over here. So there's a lot of stress here in the lung area, and it explains why the constants could come in there. And he died of lung cancer. I will say of lung cancer, 90% of lung cancers are entirely smoking related, right? There's a kind of cancer people got that's uncommon. 10% of cancers are not smoking related. And then some other lung cancers are metastatic cancers, where somebody has a cancer somewhere else and it spreads to the lung. But primary lung cancer is almost entirely smoking related. So, okay. So I'm going to close with this. This is Lois Rodden herself of our Astro Data Bank, who do the Rodden ratings on our charts, invented them. And she very generously put her whole medical history up there with her chart. And she had multiple cancers, right? She had multiple cancer types. And you can look, we just look, the chart is dominated by Saturn, right? And then the Saturn, of course, is discordant here, as a Saturn opposite Mercury in Gemini. And so the constants are there. Saturn is angular in the 10th opposite Mercury. Jupiter is sesquiquadrate to Saturn in the MC. I didn't want to draw all the lines in here because it would just become incomprehensible at some point. But that's sesquiquadrate to Jupiter and the midheaven. I mean to Saturn in the midheaven. The moon is square to Mars and Uranus, and here the moon is square to Mars and Uranus. Okay, and it's semi-square to Neptune and semi-square to Venus. Okay. And here is okay, and then the Neptune is square. This is square to Sun and to Venus. Neptune is square to Sun and Venus, and is semi-square to Pluto. So that's our constants. So they're prominent. Each of them is prominent and discordant with a good bit of discord. But so she had different cancers. For breast cancer, we're going to look to the moon and the sign Cancer. And we have Pluto conjunct the moon in Cancer. Okay. And these are not happily aspected. The moon in Cancer is square to Mars and Uranus. Okay. And also semi-square to Neptune, and also semi-square to Venus. Okay. And similar aspects for Pluto. Okay. Not identical, but similar aspects for Pluto in Cancer. Now, in this presentation, I've done for each of these, I have her progressions for when she had each of those, and I don't have them in the slideshow here, but these were activated by each one is just the pointer on the progression says, okay, this one's going to manifest now. So, okay, so that would be the breast cancer, and then at one point there were metastatic cancer to her lung, and she had surgery and had the lower lobe of her lung removed. All right, this was specified there, the lower lobe. Do you remember in the Church of Light lessons, the lower lobes of the lung are ruled by cancer, right? So this would be the same indicators for breast cancer would be indicators for the lower lobe of the lung, right? And in addition, because it's the lung, you will expect to see something going on with Mercury. And here we have our Mercury. Oh, yes, indeed. Sun is in Gemini with affliction. Mercury's in Gemini, the lung, and it's opposite Saturn. Right? So, and okay. All right. And then finally, she had skin cancers, multiple skin cancers. So but skin is ruled by Venus, right? So we'll look here and we have, Venus here is a square to Neptune, okay, and Venus is square to the ascendant, okay, and then Venus also has a semi-square to Mars over here, semi-square to the moon over there, and so this particular one, she has the constants for Cancer, and then it manifests in different tissue types where there's stresses as the progressions in those things in those areas occurred. Okay. I'm gonna close. I'll close with just one. Zane mentions tuberculosis. As here, we don't see a lot of tuberculosis today the way it used to. It used to be quite in the beginning of the 20th century. It was actually quite epidemic in cities and in tenements, and it's not just infectious. The person needs to have a weak host resistance, and then they can become susceptible to it. And then it's very hard to get rid of that infection once you have tuberculosis in your lungs. So it's a disease of Saturn. He has here Saturn. It seems similar. Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter, but then Pluto, prominent and usually afflicted. Okay. This man had tuberculosis, recurrent. He had it several times. He has, you can see here, you can see Saturn. We have a look for angular planets. Saturn here is the foundation of the chart. It's angular, very prominent, opposite the midheaven. Saturn is square to the ascendant, square to Mars, right? Square to these planets over here, square to Pluto and Mars over there. So Saturn is prominent and afflicted. And we have Neptune is angular in the first, and it's square to Jupiter and the moon. Okay, and also semi-square to the sun. So that's our discord. And then just says Jupiter. Also Jupiter. Jupiter is trine to the sun, which gives it prominence. It is also angular down here, but it's trine to the sun, adding to some prominence. But then it's also square to Neptune. Okay, and then finally Pluto, right? Okay, so Pluto is there's a Pluto here. Pluto conjunct the Sun, conjunct the Mars, square to midheaven, and square to Saturn. Right, so here we have the constants for tuberculosis in a person with tuberculosis, and that is my last slide for this evening, and I think we're ready to close the recording and can do our closing ritual.